Good morning and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Hashtag Fix the Country demonstration eventually happened on the 4th of August. Massive turnout despite the marauding Delta variant of COVID-19. Tell us why you joined, and we'll find out from the Fix the Country conveners what is next. Sputnik v Parliamentary Probe. A committee set up by Parliament to investigate the matter finds almost everything that needed to be followed was breached. And the Minister of Health lied. Did he? Does he still have a job this morning? What loss has occasioned as a result of his actions? We find the answers this morning. 15 CSOs smell waste and corruption in deal to spend $1.65 billion in Aker Energy GMPC oil mirage. Are they right or are they completely wrong? 4% hike. Public service workers say that is bad. They deserve better wages. UTAG, the Ghana Medical Association, bare teeth at government's overpay and conditions of service. Will they win? There's already an injunction. UTAG seems to say, go to hell with it. We're right back to deal with the vexed matters. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. You're welcome back. And here is Samson's take. I title it, Watch These Things, Part 3. Why is the Minerals Commission behaving as though it has been instructed to draw blood from its officers for the guys at the Fourth Estate's online publication? There's a question. Working on a story to assist the Galamsey fight, the reporters requested information including about licenses issued by the Commission since 2013 and those it had revoked for the breaches of the laws it joins us, the public, to complain about all the time. The officers shamelessly sought to deny the information by demanding about 6,000 Ghana cedis to give the public information they had generated with public funds, doing a job belonging to the public, for and on behalf of the public, and for which the public pays them, takes care of them. So the guys petitioned the RTI Commission, which determined the case and fixed the appropriate fee at 1 cedi 90 pesos if the information is to be supplied in PDF by email, or 1 cedi 80 pesos per print or photocopy by hard copy delivery. The Minerals Commission is aggrieved. In Chi, they say, Omutia Pai. It doesn't want to give the information to the reporters for public consumption. What has it got to hide? It has spent public funds to hire a lawyer to file a case in court against the RTI Commission's decision, which, by the way, is so firmly rooted in the law that requires the fees to cover only the cost of reproducing the information requested and commands that only the RTI law, not any other, must be used to deal with a request for information. Number 2, why did the state, working with the police, move heaven and earth to frustrate #Fix the Country in the name of COVID-19, only to back out and provide protection when the deadlier Delta variant is on the rampage? Our COVID-19 situation was a lot better at the time national security was meeting to discourage them from hitting the streets. The police procured an unlawful injunction order on their blind side to stop them. The Supreme Court didn't waste time in nullifying the bizarre and perverse order. The Attorney General spent precious time assisting the police argue the case in court. Police armed themselves and moved armored vehicles to patrol parts of Accra just in case they defied the bogus injunction. The elaborate COVID protocols observance plan earlier rejected is the same they submitted for this 4th August demonstration. How much has all this waste cost the taxpayer? 3, why did the state, the police in Ho and the court there violate the rights of 21 citizens, arresting them and denying them bail to wallow in cells for 3 weeks for no apparent crime, only to quote-unquote free them now, and they get no apology or compensation for it? It was obvious from the very start that participants in the said human rights conference, police conveniently labeled quote-unquote gay conference, were not engaged in any prosecutable unlawful assembly offense. You pursued the mob injustice mentality against them, only to now, quote, free them for lack of evidence to back your allegations, for which you humiliated them and violated their liberties and rights. This mob injustice mentality to this issue is the reason the Medina MP is attacked for simply criticizing aspects of the content of the anti-LGBTQ bill. His criticism was sound to cure purely bad legal drafting issues with the bill. Yet, he was attacked in a manner suggesting one cannot criticize the bill without being or without supporting or being gay. Chiefs have publicly announced they have thugs ready to abuse locals they suspect to be gay, and we are quiet and happy about it. And 4th and final point, why did Justice Samuel Diewu set aside his own $15 million judgment against the state on issues of that shouldn't necessarily lead to such an outcome? If the judgment in substance serves the ends of justice, why annul it against a poor defendant because he commenced the case without paying the accurate filing fees and failed to give 30 days notice to the Attorney General as required by law? Filing fees are largely determined by officers of the court for a party to pay. The practical approach, when it is discovered that there was mistake in calculating the filing fees, is not to throw away the case, but to demand that it is paid immediately or within a set time as affirmed by the Court of Appeal. It's almost the same approach that is adopted when a party fails to serve the 30 days notice. The case is suspended for the purpose as the law itself dictates and judicially affirmed. The reports say the court faulted the defendant for not specifically stating the amount it was awarded on the writ. But how did that same court arrive at that amount as deserving in the judgment? Isn't that the bigger question to ask? Now, here is a defender of the courts and judges criticizing them to the point of potential acts of incompetence for Article 146 impeachment action. But that is how and why we have this democracy. Watch these things. That's my take. We'll be right back with my guest to canvass the issues, 4 important issues for you this morning. Fix the country demonstration. What is next? Why did you join? Send us your messages. The Sputnik V probe. The Minister of Health is found by Parliament to have breached almost every procedure that he had to follow. He still has a job this morning. Are we fine with it? Or what should happen? Of course, GMPC Eka Energy. Questions arising. 15 CSOs cry foul, suspect waste and corruption in Ghana seeking to get a loan for that process. UTAG, GMA, all bare teeth at government for over their pay and conditions of service. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. It's brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert and Son, seeing is believing. Way lead. Home is where one starts from. Star Assurance, your solid partner. Juraplus, where Juraplus goes, water flows. DBS Industries and CIMA, helping people and businesses to succeed. And I want to say thank you very much to Evan Spencer for holding the fort for me last Saturday. So this morning you can sit in the comfort of your room and enjoy the show as you said you wish you have. Now, joining us quickly to canvass very briefly for you the matters of Fix the Country's demonstration, Hadi Yakubu is Fighter General. What a title. Fighter General, Economic Fighters League. Felicity Nelson is convener, Fix the Country. And Martin Pebu is rice activist, and he's a lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us via Zoom, gentlemen and lady.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Great, great. Here in the studio is Abdul Malik Okobako, Editor-in-Chief, New Crusading Guide newspaper. Dr. Okoboy is former Deputy Minister of Health and member Ghana's COVID-19 Task Force. We have other guests who will assist us on the other subjects, including Dr. Kwame Sapong Esiedu. We will let you know the rest of them that join us. Of course, we will, let me just share that with you. We'll have Benjamin Boache, Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy, Dr. Steve Manteo, Chairman Alliance of CSOs working on extractive, anti-corruption and good governance, Andre Japamesa, MP for 2nd D and Deputy Energy Minister. They will join us. Of course, on the labor front, we have Professor Charles Mafo, National President, University Teachers Association in Ghana. Dr. Kwabena Akung Otu is Chief Economist and Director, Labor Research and Policy Institute, Trades Union Congress, TUC. Dr. Justice Youngson is General Secretary, Ghana Medical Association, and they will help us to do the discussion. Now, let me begin by asking Felicity Nelson, you must be very impressed, you must have been impressed at the turnout. People like Franklin Kujo and many others have commended your work, that you have been successful at pulling out a massive crowd, even at such a critical time when COVID-19 is deadlier.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So how does that feel after all the frustrations that you went through?
It was probably one of the most epic days of my life. I couldn't believe the number of people who turned up on that day. And, Ghanaian young people showed me that they understood what the issues are. They're not, out of touch. It was just amazing. Such an amazing day. Such an amazing day.
Right. Take a look at these visuals, some of which we captured during your demonstration. And then I'll have, let's hear Hadi Yakubu also tell us how he feels about it, particularly having people who know how to organize these things and knowing how stressful and difficult it can be. Commend you for a good work done. Hadi, how does it feel?
Samson, good morning, and good morning to everybody on the platform this morning. Well, it feels great that we can have young people. Not just young people, but people from all walks of life come out in such great numbers. I think the numbers exceeded the expectations of everybody. We did not put a cap on the number of people we were expecting, but clearly the numbers were so huge that we did not expect them that much. But it was great. At least it gives a bit of hope to all of us that all is not lost. Ghanaians are still able to canvass themselves and come out in such great numbers when it matters for them to, demonstrate for a system that they want to, represent them. All so right. Yes, the feeling was great, and it gives hope that something young people and people of this country still have the fervor of patriotism that they want to take forward in creating a system for themselves. I
will conclude this interview by a question to the both of you as to whether or not you are not scared. Scared in the sense that we know what we are recording now as far as COVID-19 is concerned, that the Delta variant is on a rampage, and such gatherings may not be helpful. I'll conclude on that note. But before that, let's listen to some of the people who spoke during the demonstration. Let's listen to a few of them.
We have analyzed over 8 million tweets on Facebook and on Twitter, more importantly, and some on Facebook. And we've been able to systematize a lot of those complaints into about 3 or 4 critical issues, which we put out. A lot of them relate to our governance and the political system that we've established for ourselves that allows the political class to get away with so many things and disables accountability, true accountability. And we've talked about the need for the constitution, a new constitution for a new generation. That's one core proposal that you saw.
And past 75 years, must judiciously use our natural resources for development and not all these taxes of citizens creating problems for them.
Job, Tidra. I saw you Costa, Yaoshi. Into the first, the first, the person
I think that's very important that we show that we reject the attitude of the government and we want to create a culture of dissent. It's important that we create a culture of dissent. We show our disapproval.
We are tired of the lies. Article 71 office holders are lies. It is bogus. It is a calculated attempt to steal us. We are tired of the mendacilloquence, the Zabanism, and the political prostitute.
Since Ebufuado came into government in the last 5 years, how many of the community high schools that Mahama was building, how many of them has he completed? How many of these children have not been sitting under these schools and the trees for the last 4 years? Recently, we saw that they said the rosewood that's been exported illegally, they're going to donate it to the cathedral. Would it not be better used if we use it to build schools for these children who are going to schools under trees?
Before they came to government, they told us that borrowing is a lazy man's approach. Today, they have borrowed more than 200 million Ghana cedis, and the ordinary Ghanaian will use the money for. President Akufu is driving this country in the wrong direction.
Right. Felicity, what do you say to those who say that you didn't present specific demands to the managers of the country, and that is not the best? What do you say to them?
I think that one thing we've always said is that Fix the Country is not about me, it's not about Hadi, it's not about any of us conveners, it's not about us as individuals. It's about the people of Ghana, it's about creating a platform so Ghanaians can voice their problems. So if the government wants to respond to anything, they should read the placards. They should listen to the people who are speaking in the thing you just played, and across different media stations. People spoke, people have placards, people have a lot to say. So if they want to respond to anything, we don't have to give them a petition. They know what the problems are. If they don't know, they can go across and collate all the information based on all the different media interviews that were conducted on that day, and they can start responding to those things. We do not need to give them a petition. We didn't give them a petition because we've seen over the years, every time there's a demonstration, people give a petition, but we never see any government come out and respond to any of the things in the petition. So why do we need to bother to engage in this charade? And the reality is that it's not about our voices, it's about the voices of the people. So people have complained about specific things, unemployment, bad roads, education, medical healthcare. So if they want to start, they can respond to those things without receiving a petition. So we want them to act right. So if they start collating the information, they can use the hashtag Fix the Country, go on social media. You can start collating every different thing that's been highlighted over the last 3-4 months. Over the last 4 months, there's been so many issues which have been highlighted. They can collate that information and use that to pay to they can use that to decide on the things they want to work on. But we don't need to give them a petition. The people have spoken. We need to stop I don't want to speak for people. People have spoken for themselves, and you need to listen to the voice of the people and act on it.
Right. Now, before you hit the streets in Kumasi and other parts of the country, as you suggest, Hadi, listen to this and from the president, and let me get your reaction to that.
Yes, the nation is facing challenges, difficulties. But these challenges and difficulties can and will be overcome. They can and will be overcome because we have the policies, we have the program, and we have the values that will enable us to continue our journey of development in freedom. So, I'm very happy that I have the opportunity as president to celebrate this day, because my whole life has been dedicated to the struggle of our party. And I'm happy.
Right. Hadi, do you find the president at this anniversary occasion for the NPP suggesting to you that he's on course? The things you are demanding, they are being fixed already.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Sampson. I mean, it's probably some bit of progress for an acknowledgement of challenges, But then, I mean, you acknowledge challenges, and then just the next sentence, you undo that acknowledgement by repeating exactly the same things that you've been saying over the years that have not satisfied the people. You see, we need to have a governance system that allows for feedback and responses to the felt needs of the people. The sort of things that we need are not necessarily a repetition of self-praises of we have policies, we have this. It is about the structural and systemic issues that make every government that has come and go from 1992 up to date to be completely wasteful, completely unaccountable, irresponsible, and lack of sensitivity to the needs of the people. We need to be looking at all these systemic issues. It is not necessarily about piecemeal policies. It is about what the systemic framework is within which these policies are working, within which these policies are being formulated, such that they are done in a way that the system itself can gear them towards the needs of the people. So if we are not having a conversation about systemic issues and structural issues, we are just tickling ourselves and laughing. And that's why a lot of the sentiments that were expressed at the demonstration, from all walks, people from all walks of life, this was the biggest non-partisan citizen led movement, demonstration in the history of this country. Yeah. And you cannot take it away from the people.
Yeah, I followed a part of it. I followed it partly, and I was surprised because initially I thought it was youth that were galvanizing on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and the rest of them. Then I discovered that very elderly, citizens. This man said he was 70 plus or 75 plus, and he was there demonstrating. But the question is, for example, those who are watching, including Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, says that at this 29th MPP anniversary, the president literally, ignored, fixed the country. So what's the point in continuing, as you have promised, to go to the various capitals?
You see, Samson, you earlier asked my colleague Felicity why we didn't submit a petition, a list of things. And one of the things we've consistently said is that it is not our job to list the problems that this country is facing and give them to the president or the government. Every government that has come and gone has consistently known what the problems of this country are. Go to the National Development Planning Commission, analyze all the development plans that have been produced since 1990. Do you see that the problems of this country are very, very obvious? It is the will to create a system that responds to this in a genuine, patriotic manner that is not there. And therefore, the quest of the people of this country in the way that they showed themselves on the streets on the 4th of August, to make sure that the system changes, to bring about a sort of accountability and responsibility that cannot take for granted the power given to governments by the citizens, and also ignore the felt needs of the people. That quest is to force the willingness. It is the willingness to create the systems for these problems to be solved that is not there. And therefore, we are trying to create a platform and a conversation in all parts of Ghana. And it is not about other regions. It is every inch of this country is going to be covered. Okay. And it's not just about demonstrations. It is also about sensitizing and having conversations about the kind of things, the kind of society that we have built for ourselves and that has been built over the years, that has consistently failed, to deliver development, to deliver healthcare, to deliver education, to deliver good roads, to deliver all these things that democracy promises,
Okay, so hold on.
How that system is going to be relooked at and replaced with one that caters to the needs of all the people.
Hold on for me. Some say that it seems you are living in an idealistic world. But hold on for me briefly. Martin Pebu, do I have you? Hello, Martin.
Yeah, Samson. Yes, I'm here.
Great. So there are aspects, political scientists like Dr. Asa Asante of the University of Ghana, who says that they need to present an itemized list, even though on their placards we see they want the constitution, overhauled. Of course, this is something that Nana Akufo-Addo preached when he was he was a candidate. Even before he was a candidate, he was preaching that we needed to overhaul the Constitution. Well, Professor Mills gave us one process. We have almost a 1,000-page document. It's gathering dust still. Now, what do you say about saying that without such a list, they won't make much progress, as against what independent candidate Jacob Osei-Yeboah had just sent me? He says, Samson, fix the country is a process of self-organization from organizational behavior experts. So each person will say his or her fears. That makes fix the country more dangerous. Each person's fears will be aggregated into a focused policy later. The government should rather be the one doing the collation of the issues and listed on the placards to find solutions to them.
Perfect. So I'll go with the last one as a practical measure, which is to say, once you've seen the issues written on the placards, you tabulate them, you copy them out. And something that's not the first time. We have a plethora of acts of parliament which say that a person can make a complaint orally. Okay? So you take freedom of information. You can make make a request orally. You go to SHRAD, you can make a complaint orally. The Whistleblowers Act, if somebody wants to blow their whistle and you cannot write, you can make the complaint orally, and so on and so forth. So you see that in governance, let's not be too book long. A man has brought a placard, and the one that caught my heart was that they are trying to buy watches, and people in government are buying V8s. Then it reminded me of the president, one of his first promises when he took office, that there is a moratorium on the purchase of V8s. Today, I'm sure the jury is out as to whether we are still observing that. So when you've seen such a placard, and also I'm very happy that Uncle Ben Epson, that was the placard he caught in the Daily Dispatch. Yeah, it was very poignant, very, very poignant. We try to buy watches whilst people are trying to make a living. You are buying V8s, whilst you have salaries. Okay? Does
that not sound smack of populism? Because look, don't certain persons who are performing certain duties require these sort of vehicles to assist them to efficiently perform?
Yeah, in Accra, you know this V8 matter, initially they had said they will keep some in the pool so that if the person is doing cross-country, that's a minister or deputy or whatever, it goes to the pool. But that is not being observed. Go to town. You see the whole of Accra is awash with government V8s. Such an abuse. Number two, Samson, you work as a lawyer. Haven't you bought your private car? Why is it that suddenly tomorrow when you are appointed as a minister, you think that government should take care of everything for you? Fuel, everything. I mean, such an abuse. It's so indecent. I can't believe it that this is the same president who promised, I will protect the public purse.
But Martin, you don't have lifestyle audits in Ghana. So the fact that someone is using a V8 will not suggest that, is it fair to suggest that that is corruption when you are not doing, like we have suggested before, the constitutional provision that demands, that kind of way of approach that, we should be
for your wealth.
Yeah, we should be monitoring your wealth. If you are buying anything in public office, you should be able to account for it, that you have, this is the source of money from which you buy it. Once we don't have that, is it fair to suggest that if somebody is doing something, then it's corruption?
No, I've said abuse of the public purse. I've not mentioned corruption yet. Maybe I'll come to that if need be. I said abuse because it was the president himself who said that he doesn't see the need for the V8. So he put a moratorium on the V8. So that's what we are holding him to account for. That when did he lift that? And is it necessary? What happened to the suggestion that, they would keep some in the pool? So if a minister needs to travel out, then he would go into the pool and take a V8. But now you go to the ministries and you find V8s all over, fresh ones. So that is the point.
Yeah.
So coming back to it, so that we went to the V8 because we're saying that the placards have enumerated the issues. Okay, ad nauseam. And also, I mean, we all know from day one when Fix the Country started, we knew that unemployment was one of them. So, and so on and so forth. So, nobody can be heard to say that without an official petition, the Fix the Country demonstrators have not made out their case.
All right.
And let me come back also to something you raised. Please, populism, sometimes we make it look like populism is bad, but it didn't start today. Populism has always been in us, except that, you know, sometimes the political winds change from populism to the other. Remember in the US, yes, Donald Trump was populist, he won. So we are not necessarily saying that populism is bad, because the ordinary man is hungry, he's starving.
Do you support the view, and if you can do that in a minute for me, do you support the plan that they are going to continue to other parts of the country, particularly in this time when there is the Delta variant of COVID, and we can see how the numbers are rising?
Sam, yes, I support, but with certain restrictions. I'm happy Uncle Kukubaku is in the studio. I think he said it time without number that he's even done one-man demonstrations. So what I'm saying is that for the rest of the regions, they should ensure social distancing and then cut down on the numbers. Cut down. It's symbolic. So let's say maybe if the police say they can ensure social distancing for, let's say, 100 or 200, I'll pray with the Fix the Country demonstrators to go by that. But the demonstrations are very welcome. It's good. Look, it doesn't matter which party you belong to.
All right, Martin, thank you very much. That's about it. That time will allow us. Now, Felicity, the question I said you guys should answer before you leave. Do you think this is prudent going forward in this time in particular?
So considering the fact that the chief medical director of the country said that open air events do not necessarily contribute to the numbers, the COVID numbers, you know, so for me, I'm going to take his word for it. And the reality is that we've had so many so-called super spreader events. We had the election, we've had mass gatherings at funerals. We've been okay with that. So why is it that suddenly when people want to protest, suddenly we want to, have the conversation around COVID? COVID existed when we were doing elections. COVID existed when we were compiling the new voters register. COVID existed during the Christmas. COVID existed during Sir John's funeral, for example. So why do we suddenly want to focus on, or do you want to protest when there's COVID? And the reality is that for so many people who live in the country, they're dying of starvation. They're dying due to the fact that they can't afford 3 meals. They are unemployed. They can't get proper health care. So for them,
thank you, Felicity. And Hadi Yakubu, there's one thing that I paid attention to. You had placards on Kaka, who was murdered, and you actually took time and ask everybody to go down sort of in respect for him. And we're saying all sorts of things. Why that? Why that attention?
Yeah, that's not all. Kaka's family was actually at the protest. In fact, his daughter spoke, and you couldn't help it. Everybody was down in tears. It was so emotional. The reason for all this is because Kaka was one of us. Kaka was somebody who consistently highlighted the issues in his community. Kaka was somebody who loved his community. And all he did was to spend his own time, resources, and energy to campaign for the issues facing his people to be fixed. I mean, for that, he received threats and then subsequently murdered. We are still waiting for the investigations to conclude. But it was important to highlight this as a show of solidarity amongst the people of this country, that one person's ordeal is the ordeal of all of us. And we need to be together, and we need to highlight these things to make sure that we build a country where people can freely express themselves about the things that are happening.
All right. Thank you so very much, Hadi Yakubu, Fighter General of the Economic Fighters League, and Felicity Nelson, who is also a convener of the Fix the Country, hashtag Fix the Country demonstration. I'll take a quick comment from Kuku and then we can move on. I don't know if you want to say something about that. There's one thing that caught my attention. You saw Ernesto Yeboah and the rest of them. Ernesto Yeboah is known for these things. And whilst they were going around, as litter was being dropped, they were picking every litter on the way with them. So you could see that they were prepared and really organized. They had also gone there with face masks to distribute, even though you see in the pictures that some people were still not wearing the masks.
Yes, well, that's quite a positive aspect. I've been in demonstrations all my life. I'm on retirement now, of course. Unless something very dramatic happens, I'll remain retired. But is that aspect, I doubt if I've seen it before, to be honest with you. So it was good. It helps clean the environment through sanitation, in spite of the fact that, as you have indicated, there were breaches of the COVID safety protocols. In my candid opinion, not avoidable. I mean, it's not avoidable. Mass gatherings. I hear people point to Sir John's funeral, what happened there, and I have to be candid with you. Even my own mom's funeral too, there were such violations in terms of the protocol. We tried as much as possible to contain and control, especially within the church hall, but outside it was uncontrollable. Okay. So these things do happen, and you need to concede when it happens and proceed. But that aspect was positive, and I salute them for that. Look, I was happy to see the demonstration take place, also in a very peaceful and orderly manner. It helps, especially against the backdrop of the earlier attempts by the police, the Attorney General's Department to, more or less checkmate it within the context of the restrictions that COVID has brought about. But this one and the NDC youth one, all those obstacles took place, and each of them was peaceful and orderly. It's important. COVID is going to be here for a while. We have the Public Order Act too, and we have the executive instruments, which have imposed all sorts of restrictions. But we should not create a situation where there's a blanket, for instance, a sanction that you would not allow demonstrations. It's dangerous. It's human nature being what it is. Shouldn't be suppressed unduly. So opening up some limited space here and there, and because of social media and technology can also be brought on bear.
They are better organized on social media.
Very good. I like that. Indeed, very early stages, I made that proposal. That they could do small actions in the street, sometimes picketing, and can also apply social media in technology to expand the scope. Now, the question of their message, I've heard a lot of people wonder what exactly is the message. It's true. Also, everybody goes out there. You see, placards, there are two forms. There are placards that are officially sanctioned by organizers, who even sometimes put the messages together. Right. You can see those placards when you see. Then there are placards that are unofficial. The followers coming from their various homes and workplaces will come with all sorts of placards. Mainly, some of them are written in charcoal and chalk and things. And so it can give a certain split messages, but it's unavoidable. There's no big deal there. Okay. Trying to capture what their message is. One thing that struck me for the first time, and I think it's one of the conveners, is it Mr. Vomawo?
Vomawo, yeah, Oliver.
Yes, just what he played. He was saying a new constitution for a new generation. Yeah, in terms of a concept, I like that. I'd like to hear that. Whether you agree or not is immaterial. It is an attempt to conceptualize the aspirations and give us a focal point. But at the same time, and I hope it is not a fake video. I saw on social media the same gentleman talking about abolition of the Fourth Republic. You see, it's contradictory. You cannot talk about having constitutional reforms of whatever nature and call for abolition of the Fourth Republic. They are mutually exclusive. You can seek constitutional reforms within the Fourth Republic, which is what the Constitution Review Commission set out to do. If those proposals, the recommendations of the Commission have not been implemented, I think that there's nothing wrong with the focus on that side. That look, we want the recommendations implemented, operationalized. Right. Government may have differences with that. And I've been told, I think recently, the Attorney General's responses to Parliament on an urgent question give us a hint of why government is not going along in totality with the recommendations. But I would advise that the language, the communication needs polishing. You cannot call for abolition of the Fourth Republic in the name of seeking constitutional reforms.
All right. Thank you very much. Doc, I thought we could end this here so that we could go to our next issue, very important matter as well. But if you can do just a minute on the issue of, like they reply, they say that you, the expert, had said that these open-air events are not grounds to breed anything. So they don't see any reason why anybody should be telling them that it's not good to do this at this time.
Well, first of all, the truth is that open-air events, the risk is it's a measure of risk. The risk is lower compared to an indoor enclosed event.
It's only minimized. It's
I'm measuring risk.
All right.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that if you go there without a mask, talking closely to people, your risk is lower. So it's a number of things that come together to determine your ultimate risk. But bottom line, like Senior Baku said, you want to have a balancing act between economic and social lives and managing the pandemic. And it's always a very fine act. Now, one line on Fix the Country. I have always said that from 57, and maybe even before Nkrumah became Prime Minister, anytime people went to the polls, they were indirectly telling leaders that please go and fix the issues. As recent as 2000 elections, people didn't vote for Akufo-Addo because he's the, in code, maybe the most handsome one, it's because they believe that he can help to fix more of the issues that we have. And I just said on one of your platforms that sometimes it might be unfair to look at the number of issues that are existing, that's challenges, to use to judge a government. You might also have to look at what was bequeathed to the government, how many things that it's tried to undo.
You wouldn't say this if you were in opposition.
Oh, I mean, and that's the beauty of democracy. I mean, from all angles, you have to be tolerant. I'm saying this because we are having the ball in our court and working on things. And fixing the country is not an omnibus thing. It will come down into sectors. So you have to fix education, you have to fix water, you have to fix agriculture, you have to fix constitutional rule. And I believe that we are doing a lot to try and address on these things. It's not to say there are no issues in this country. And sometimes it's important to remember what triggered this Fix the Country.
All right.
I think some have forgotten. When we had the power situation becoming unstable some few months ago, and then Ghana Water said they were doing some repairs in Tema. People were seen using Kufuor gallons to get water somewhere from drains. And then people put it on social media, and the youth joined that they want employment. I think if we had time, we could have gone into efforts made by government to
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Okoboy. And we take a break here, and we return to find out if the health minister still has a job. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. We have your messages and we'll share them with the rest of the world very shortly. Now, coming to the controversial Sputnik V transaction, which has led to a probe by Parliament for very good reasons. I'm reading the findings of the Committee of Parliament to you and their recommendations, which, among others, say a number of things. So here are the findings. Non-compliance of Article 1815 of the Constitution. That is whether it was an international transaction and needed to be brought to Parliament. The committee found that the procurement and supply of Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccines between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Health, and the private office of His Highness Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum is an international agreement. The committee therefore took the considered view that the agreement qualifies as an international business or economic transaction, and the legal implication is that the agreement required prior parliamentary approval to come into operation in accordance with Article 1815 of the 1992 Constitution. The view of the committee aligns with the advice of the Honorable Minister for Justice and Attorney General and the ratio in the case of the Attorney General versus Balkan Energy Limited and others. So that is number one. It was an international transaction. It didn't come to Parliament. It should have received prior approval. In fact, the Attorney General advised, and it didn't happen. Two, the committee found that SL Global, that's another company which also got, which was also transacted, was a Ghanaian incorporated company. Hence, the ministry's agreement with the firm did not qualify as an international business or economic transaction where parliamentary approval would be required. So that is safe pass. Procurement process. The committee found that the Ministry of Health did not seek approval from the board of the PPA under sections 40 and 41 of Act 663 before signing the agreement. The ministry, however, applied for ratification under section 19(3)(c) of the Act, which has still not been granted. The committee also found that PPA has not concluded its investigations into the matter. So for procurement, no approval, no ratification yet. Dealings with distributors. The committee found that the ministry dealt with the private office of His Highness Al Maktoum and SL Global. The two entities were appointed by the Gulf Health Investments Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, to be both agents and distributors of the Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccines in Ghana, clearly using middlemen for the purchase and distribution of the vaccines. One of the terms of the reference of the committee was to establish whether middlemen were used instead of bilateral deals, government to government. Now, cost of the vaccines. The committee found that the amount of $19 was the agreed price of the vaccine under the ministry's agreement with Al Maktoum, and $18.50 under the agreement with SL Global, which was originally $25 per dose. The committee found that the ex-factory price of the Sputnik V vaccine was $10 per dose. The minister explained that the prices achieved under the two agreements included the cost of documentation, shipping, packaging, logistics, and expenses in relation to transportation of the vaccine from its place of origin to Ghana. Decision to procure the vaccines. The committee found that the ministry entered into the two agreements without cabinet approval. Note that too. Without cabinet approval, but only based on ministerial decision, having regard to the advice of the COVID-19 Emergency Operating Committee. Payment to Messrs. Al Maktoum. The minister was asked if there was payment. He said no, there was no payment. He doesn't believe there can be payment because there was an LC on site, meaning there must be delivery before payment. Now, this is the finding. The committee found that the amount of $2,850,000 US, representing 50% of the contract sum of $5,700,000 United States dollars, has been paid to Messrs. Al Maktoum, and this translates into the CD equivalent of 16 billion plus. 16 million plus, converted at the then prevailing exchange rate of $1 to 5.73, whereas the minister said he had no knowledge of payment under oath. So questions are coming. What are the implications? If you lie under oath, what must you suffer? That's a criminal offense, isn't it? Then recommendations. Based on the aforementioned findings, the committee recommends as follows. Issues relating to Article 181(5) of the Constitution. The committee is of the opinion that even if the situation in the country at the time the agreement was signed was that of an emergency, due process of law should have been followed because Parliament would have treated the issue with the urgency it deserved and the appropriate action would have been taken accordingly. The agreement would have been taken under certificate of urgency in accordance with the standing orders and the practices of the House. The point must also be made that even if it was an emergency, the minister should have found the time to communicate effectively and engage with the Committee on Health. The extensive engagement would have saved the ministry from the negative reactions from the citizenry and some members of Parliament. The committee therefore recommends that in future, any such transaction, whether local or international, be subjected to broader stakeholder consultation and should be taken through the process of law, including parliamentary approval. Other ministries, departments, and agencies should take a cue from the recommendation, not only in the case of agreement, but also on issues relating to policies and programs to be implemented. Issue of procurement. The committee found that the Ministry of Health did not seek approval from the board of PPA under the law, blah, blah, blah. And therefore, what does it say? So it comes to the conclusion of 3 points or so. It says the committee has discharged its mandate by diligently examining the two agreements, written, oral, and oral evidence on the subject within the parameters of the 7 terms of reference and the timelines given to the House. As already stated, the committee found the ministry did not comply with the requirements of Article 181 of the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. The minister said that he did that because of the exigencies of COVID. They have said why he failed, and that was not good enough. The agreement ensuing from the negotiations have been submitted to PPA for ratification. So they say, the committee urges the Minister of Finance to take steps to recover the money due to the Republic in respect of that's the money that has been paid, being the cost of the Sputnik V vaccines that were proposed to be procured. The committee, by consensus, recommends to the House to adopt this report. So let me begin with Kwame Esiedu Sapong. Kwame, thank you very much for joining us. After all the findings of the committee, the recommendation, or if you like, the action that they really want to take against the minister, is there really any action that they have recommended against the minister?
Samson, thanks, and good morning to my fellow panelists. It was interesting yesterday because I listened to the parliamentary proceedings. In fact, I watched it through joy. And one of the things I found interesting was that the minority were trying to move for a vote of no confidence in the minister, and the majority was having none of it. And the second deputy speaker virtually did not rule on it and adjourned it probably till thy kingdom come. You lawyers have a term you use for that. The question I asked myself at that point is, what exactly are we aiming at as a people? Because this is a parliamentary committee. Parliamentarians hold in trust because we vote for them as our representatives. They represent us, and we have put an executive officer, who's the minister, in position. They tell us the minister has breached so many things. In fact, the minister has lost, through his actions, has lost us money because now the contract has been abrogated and we've paid for almost 150,000 doses, of which we've received 20,000 doses. So we are 130,000 doses short. But there's no recommendation as to what happens to someone who has engaged in this. There's flagrant violations of a number of laws. But when it comes to the issue
is it a number of laws or all the laws?
Well, all the laws. when it comes to the issue of perjury, I was with Martin on a program last night, and I did draw his attention to the fact that I was a bit concerned about going down the tangent of perjury, because subsequent to this, a letter has appeared dated the 3rd of August, which seems to indicate that the monies were paid on the backside of the minister. That's what it seems to indicate. I am not saying that I believe it in its entirety. We've all seen the documents. The question I ask myself is, based on that letter, who was in a hurry to make the payments, and what was it in it for that person? Because we've seen the people who signed all these letters. They are known figures. Some of them are civil servants. The payments went through the Bank of Ghana. So if it turns out that the minister, though he had broken all these laws, though he had entered into a transaction, let's say illegally, was not actually in sync with the payment, could we say that he committed perjury, or he wasn't in control of his mandate? Because I would also struggle to see how such a payment could go on when the minister has told all of us that he was so concerned about Ghanaians, and therefore we're not in normal times, and he was acting primarily to save all of us, not knowing that the payment had been made when he so desperately needed the vaccines. So these are the gray areas for me, and for the Parliament of Ghana to see all these documents, because you must remember that this letter dated the 3rd was actually written by the legal officer of the Ministry of Health to Parliament, trying to say that they had found information after the minister appeared. With all this information, if our Parliament cannot come to a decision, and a speaker, or be a second deputy speaker sitting in for the speaker, because apparently the speaker, there was an issue yesterday with an accident or something, cannot make a ruling, then I only cringe. That's all I can say. I cringe, because I don't know who else can make a ruling based on the information we have. So that's my initial take on it.
So when you read the recommendation that the Minister of Finance should take steps to recover the money, how do you understand he is going to recover that money?
Well, take steps to recover the money in the sense that we made a payment for which we haven't received the goods for which we paid for, in this case, vaccines. And therefore, he would have to go back to Al Maktoum to try and recover that money from him. The question I ask myself is this going to be a straightforward process? Is that not also going to go through litigation? If it does, is that not going to cost us money? And I remember, Samson, when all this started on one of these programs, I did say that my understanding of the law, because I'm not a lawyer, is that in itself doesn't mean losing money. It also means doing an act that could potentially lose us money. And so I want to understand, now that the money has been paid and potentially we could lose the money, to you lawyers, has a crime been committed? And if so, who has committed the crime?
So hold on there. Kuku, what do you make of how Parliament has sort of finished up on this, and the minority seeking that this is a man who doesn't deserve to be in that office? Either he was aware he lied, or he was in fact not aware, but not being aware itself is such an indictment, and therefore he should get out of the place.
Well, it's good to note that this whole investigation arose out of a private member's motion.
That's right.
Initiated by the minority leader. And also, if I look at the composition of the committee, it appears to be bipartisan. That's some good progress there. I like it. I like the optics. And then also, of course, the recommendations, though have not gone far enough, in my candid opinion, is good for starters.
But for the current status of Parliament, this would not have been possible.
Well, I need to be cautious, because perhaps if we did a check of parliamentary history relative to the Fourth Republic, we may find some similar things. sometimes it is now the highlighting media and civil society, especially the social media angle. Things these days, become, sometimes they look new when indeed it's not entirely new. But I'm cautious there. I need to do a check before I can make a conclusive position. But generally, I like it. And a disaster, unmitigated disaster. One has to be brutally frank. No cabinet approval, no public procurement board approval, no parliamentary approval. It's a mess.
The public procurement one might be excusable because there is the law allows for ratification after you have done the thing.
I know that.
Right.
I know that. But still, the report doesn't appear to even agree with that entirely in terms of the trajectory.
Yeah.
Yes. So
it stresses that even as they finish the report, that ratification is still not in.
It's unmitigated disaster. Look, it's so difficult. I like the minister. He's such a gentleman. But you see, we are not talking personalities here. And we are not seeking to personalize the issues. This became an issue of huge public interest. We discussed it here. In fact, we dropped the hints about the Attorney General's
advice, which was ignored.
Yes, we interrogated it here. And so, I'm being honest, what else can you say but to, if I were the minister, if he's minded to step aside, in fact, to resign, not step aside, I would endorse it. I would vote for him. If he were to do the honorable thing and just quit. Because there's nothing. Look, you cannot defend this.
Martin, you are still with us, correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Right. Okay, so the public has heard you from the very first day when we discussed this matter here with you. You were most uncharitable, and you have been heard after the report was released yesterday in the evening. In fact, this matter was not one of the issues we were going to discuss. It has replaced the Seglime issue. We're going to discuss Seglime, and then the report came in the evening, and we had to change and discuss this. Yes, so you say he should just go.
Long overdue. He should have gone a long time ago. You see, the report has even made matters worse for him. You see, Mr. Ajimamenu is now embarrassing us as a country. It's as if he's our best talent for that job. But we all know he's not. You see, that's why maybe it appears he doesn't understand public service. Look, there are 1,001 citizens who can perform that job. The president chose him, but he has taken us down a path that has embarrassed us so much. So he just has to go quietly. But you see that he's digging in his heels. And then you have some of our citizens holding press conferences to support him. It cannot be supported. Let's come to this. Samson, you see, the last time we raised this, we mentioned that, look, money must have been paid because even the agreement for the procurement of the vaccine, clause 4.2, itself says that we're to pay for the vaccine with a site LC. Samson, it says site LC.
Right.
From the little understanding, this site LC means when the goods have been delivered, sometimes even not delivered, it's possible for the person to be paid. That's the exporter, the person who supplied, depending on how the contract is worded. But bottom line is that whether the contractor or the exporter should be paid because the goods have left the country of export, or even in Ghana, once you say site LC, it has certain meanings, okay, that certain documents will be presented. So the argument I'm making is that even without this payment that has first come out, the contract that he signed means that payment was to be made soon after the latest, soon after the 20,000 vaccines were delivered. So on what basis could the minister go to parliament to say that nothing is being paid? It's Al Maktoum Father Christmas. Is Al Maktoum Father Christmas that he'll give you vaccines, 20,000, and not receive payment? So you see that this thing that he hasn't paid, that's why I believe we have to press the issue of perjury very hard, because Ajmamenu is not living, and so we have to make the law bite. And in this direction, I'm thinking that I want citizens to join me so that we will present a joint petition to Parliament so that he'll be tried for the perjury in Parliament, okay? Because under the Constitution, if somebody obstructs justice in Parliament, he has to face the law. We don't want to go into our ordinary law courts because that may raise some issues. For now, I think that minimum we should.
What's the history, the precedent for that? Perjury under our Criminal Offences Act is elevated beyond the misdemeanor, right? And so you are looking at several years in prison if he's found guilty. How is Parliament going to do that, and for him to go to which prison if that were to be the case?
Good. So Parliament's perjury is, that's why I said I'm not looking at the criminal, that's the ordinary Criminal Offences Act. I'm looking at Parliament's own act. There's perjury.
Okay.
There is the constitutional provision and then the Parliament's Act, Act 300. So if we start with the constitutional provisions, so we are looking at Article 100 and, Contempt of Parliament.
Right.
Article 122. It says that an act or omission which obstructs or impedes Parliament in the performance of its functions, blah, 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 is contempt. Now, this obstructs, obstruction of justice. If you go and lie, perjury, you're obstructing. Now, for clearer meaning, when we go to Parliament Act 1965, the 5, Act 300, it makes it clear that if a person lies, lies under oath in Parliament, then that should also be contempt of Parliament, so that the Act makes it very clear. I'm seeking to read.
Now, knowing our Parliament, of course, together they've been able to produce this report, despite the facts of the majority-minority. We know how the numbers are tricky now. Some would have said this would have been unthinkable, that, and Afenyomakin signs this document together with Minta Kando. Now, knowing the situation in Parliament, and you can see what happened last night, that they wanted to proceed to sort of impeach him, pass a vote of censure for the president to remove him. That didn't work, and obviously may not work. Why don't you prefer, if this is what you feel should be done, that we should go through the criminal aspect where the state, through the police or attorney general, will prosecute him for perjury?
Okay, so the first thing is that, number one, I believe that, because of the constitutional relationship between Parliament and the courts, the judiciary, I've read material elsewhere that shows that, at least in those jurisdictions in the UK, they are reluctant to take a parliamentarian to court because of that relationship. You say, we are not bound by that. We can chart our own path. But I was thinking that, why don't we start with Parliament first? Because apart from the vote of censure under Article 82 that you mentioned, as a citizen, I have the right to petition the Speaker of Parliament. But I think what Honorable Ajmamenu did at the committee hearing amounts to perjury. So if the Speaker admits it, then it means that we'll have a trial in Parliament for contempt. So his crime will be contempt of Parliament, being the perjury. And though I understand they are on recess now, if citizens join and we present the petition to the Speaker, I think they need about 1/3 of the members to recall Parliament, right?
That's right.
And so I'm expecting that at least you will find in the membership of Parliament at least 1/3 who think that, look, let's get justice, because these acts have been too brazen. So we have to hold Mr. Ajmamenu to account. You see?
I see. Okay.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
I'm seeking just education.
Right.
With the 3rd August letter, which was sent to the committee before it finished its work, would they have any mitigating effect?
Martin has become aware of that letter and still insists that Mr. Ajman-Menu will not be absolved. Is that not the case?
I'm asking if it
Sam,
can mitigate.
I didn't hear Uncle Kweku back. Which letter is he talking about?
The 3rd August letter, which was sent to the committee, to the effect that apparently the minister
was unaware,
subsequently realized that some payment had been made. And this was before the completion of the committee's work.
Yeah.
I'm just asking. I'm seeking legal aid.
So he gives evidence on oath. He's asked the direct question, what have payments been made? He says, no, I don't think any payment has been made. Then, before the committee finishes its work, he causes to be sent to the committee. That's what you're saying, Kweku.
Sure.
Sent to the committee a letter confirming that payment has been made.
And then he says that he didn't know on his blind side. So that is where we'll still hold him. Look, Mr. Ajman-Menu
So the question is technically, can you hold him for perjury?
That's the question I'm asking.
That's exactly the question I also asked Martin yesterday.
Right.
That if the content of the letter is accurate, as read, can he be held for perjury, or he can then be held for, quote unquote, maybe negligence, not being in control of his portfolio? So that letter changed my view a bit about what had happened on the day. The other thing that comes to mind, and as far as I'm concerned, I know with these committees, is that when they finish, at least the person who appeared will be given sight of their draft report so that if they have any inputs, they can make it. At what point was that letter written? Was that letter written when Mr. Ajman-Menu had opportunity to see the draft and realized that they had made these findings and then wrote to try and correct it?
Let me get your point here. You are suggesting, you are suspecting that there is a possibility that having lied and having subsequently discovered that he's been caught, ex post facto, he now does this letter and sends to them to show that payment has been made.
I wasn't aware.
Okay.
Yes, because that's what, if you read the letter and you see all the IBM numbers, because I studied the letter a lot when I got it yesterday, and that was why I asked Martin the legal question, because I'm not a legal person. But looking as an analyst, looking at the sequence of events, and looking at the fact that yesterday was the 6th and the letter was dated the 3rd, and on the 6th, a PDF document had already been issued that was going to be debated on the 4th. So that document would most likely have been generated on the 5th because the committee members have to see it.
Right.
This letter is dated the 3rd, which means that the person who appeared most likely had seen the draft and had to make his inputs and then wanted to correct that. Is that also possible? I don't know. But that is what my analytical mind tells me.
Yes, Martin.
Let me come in, Sam.
Yeah, Martin.
Yeah, Sam, the point is that, let me repeat. Look, this letter doesn't carry his case any far. It doesn't at all. It's rather even made the case worse. Let me explain.
How?
I'm saying that this contract he signed, the vaccine supply agreement, clause 4.2 says that, let me read a bit of it. The buyer shall pay in advance through site LC to the seller 50% for each batch of supply order as per supply order specifications. Let's stop. The site LC, so what I'm saying is that he signed it. He's saying that site LC, so meaning that once he received the goods in Ghana, the vaccines were received at the airport.
I get that.
Some documentation. I don't want to get into the technical bits, how the site LC
I get that.
done. So if we're using even his own agreement on the face of it meant that as soon as he received the vaccines, he should pay.
Right.
So how can you sign an agreement that shows that if you receive the vaccine, you should pay?
Right.
You tell us that you don't know. And you know how many months on that he doesn't even care whether the supplier has been paid or not.
Right.
It's a cock and bull story.
Okay. So you are saying that at the time he was signing the site LC,
the vaccine supply agreement, He knew that inside it, clause 4.2 says that the mode of payment is site LC.
Right.
And the site LC simply, and they're leaving out technicalities, meaning that once the goods were brought in Ghana here, or even sometimes from the country of origin, once documents are presented to the bank would pay.
Okay.
So, you see, the bank would pay. So how can, and then remember, the agreement was signed in March. So, and we are in July.
Okay.
You have yet
so my final question to you will be that they say the finance minister should recover the money. So this finance minister who is going to recover the money has rather been saying that we should empathize or sympathize with Mr. Ajiman Menu rather than the manner we are taking things. He says, quote, "We will always get our money back. I think it's just so little empathy in appreciating what my colleague minister might have been doing, might have been going through. When you have been sworn in with a mandate to protect the health of the people, I am not sure he had any other choice with the way he acted." What do you think?
Yes. Sam, ordinarily, I'm a person, I have a lot of empathy. I have loads of it. But our empathy for Mr. Ajimamenu ran out when he made the first mistake, went and signed the agreement for $25, and the president stepped in and canceled it. You see that we didn't make much of it. He also stated that it was even the sheikh who approached the ministry. You remember the letter that they sent us, the 9th March, the letter from the chief director. It turned out that he rather approached the sheikh. That's the ministry approached the sheikh. Mr. Ajimamenu also said that he had been trying to do government to government through the Russian ministry. It turned out that he signed the agreement before, that's in March, and then in April, he wrote to the Russian foreign ministry. So when you put all of this, the empathy ran out a long time ago. The best he should have done, we're saying this from day one, is that he should have resigned a long time ago.
Okay.
Then would have said, "Oh,
okay." So
something is given.
You will not take the minister's encouragement to us. He actually says that it is so unsympathetic to somebody who felt like, what can I do to ensure that there is continuity, and to sit now comfortably and kind of just, I'm quoting him, and says, "I don't seem to empathize. I am empathizing with him, and I expect that others will realize the type of pressure that he was under and his commitment to ensuring that the Ghanaian people are safe." You will not sympathize with him, but how easy is it to get this money back?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Sam, the first part, there's sympathy, just one line on it. Sam, once bitten, twice shy. During the first wave, he said he was confused. He couldn't think straight. We are possibly in the third wave, right? So we have another problem on our hands. So he doesn't have the steady hands to steer this ship. He doesn't have the steady hands to steer this ship.
How easy is it to get this money back?
So money back, yes, the sheikh. I think we do business with the sheikh. So we would ask him, and Sam, let's draw, it looks like we're overlooking something. Have you seen the email from the lawyer from the ministry, dated the 25th July? Look at it. Have you seen it as part of the preparation? Look at the email. They had already told them. So there's one here, 25th of July, where the Sheikh's office replied that they will refund it when we send a formal notice of termination. Sam, have you seen the email?
Go ahead and make your point.
Yeah, so there's an email I've been given here that the ministry's, lawyer wrote to them, the Sheikh's office, 25th of July. Then they replied And part of the reply was that, yes, they received the money on the 13th of April, 2021, via international inward remittance, blah. And then they say on the question, when will you refund? They say, upon receipt of a formal termination notice from GOG, we will refund the remaining amount for the non-supplied doses. So this is the ministry's own lawyer.
Okay.
That's a response from the Sheikh's office.
All right.
So you see why even issues about that he didn't even know that payments had been made is quite...
Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. And Kofi Bento says that this is what must happen to Ajiman Menu. First, he must be made to return the money. 2, face the law in Parliament for perjury and also criminally for causing financial loss and breaching procurement law. And 3, be sacked. This is not his first procurement scandal. There are others such as snake serum and medical software running into about $100 million. If we can't deal with such open breaches, we will collapse this nation. Let me find out what Okoboy has to say briefly, and then we take a break and return to deal with the questions arising concerning the GMPC Aka Energy deal, where 15 CSOs are up in arms. They say there is waste, they smell corruption in governments seeking to procure 1.6 billion for the process.
Yeah, something. So, Council, I think there are some concessions that were made by the minister when he appeared before the committee.
It was very apologetic.
Yes, the first one being that it should have come to Parliament. So it's really, like we know already. Then the other one had to do with the AG. AG's advice, he said he got it post.
I know we put you in a very invidious position when we asked you to comment about
yes. And then the PPA, where he admitted that they didn't get the approval. So some concessions were made even before this report came out. There are some few gray areas about the cost of the vaccine, where that one is sort of subject to interpretation because of availability and all that. But as for the concessions...
Therefore, consequently, you are sympathetic and would wish that what?
But for the funds, I think it's the novelty that, for me, it's come out, that we made some payments. I think we got, of course, get those funds back. And then, whether we like it or not, the virus is still here. So I'm very interested in how we get more vaccines in country. And let's see how we can. He himself has admitted that, given the opportunity, he would behave differently from what happened the last time.
Does he deserve the opportunity?
Well, I think for now, I think that one is in the call of the president, the prerogative. And then that's how I would put it.
People are already expressing a lot of disappointment. And this is where we'll draw the curtain on this subject matter. Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa says that, the Northern MP says that no end in sight to the damning corruption reports of the Akufo-Addo government. That the health minister remains at post confirms that he didn't act alone and that he enjoys the active support of the president. Akufo-Addo promised to fight corruption, but corruption has fought and defeated him with cheeky ease. Pathetically, Parliament, the last bastion, failed this dawn to deliver the health minister from his misery due to the all too familiar altar of extreme destructive partisanship. Whither our democracy? That's the question. We'll be right back to ask more questions whether the CSOs got it wrong on this subject matter of Aka Energy GMPC deal, or they are right in smelling waste and corruption of government chasing a mirage as far as they are concerned. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. some of your messages before we go to the GMPC and Aka Energy matter. Digura Batinos says that, honestly, the 1992 Constitution has deprived a lot of citizens of their privileges, which in a lot round causes numerous life. In a long run, that's what you wanted to say, causes numerous lives lost or hardships. We need to review a lot of the clauses that enjoins a lot of citizens to liberate freely with conditions of lives. Okay, so when you type the message, read it all over again. I've read your message to you. You can see that it just doesn't send what you want to send. George Dowona Naughty says, those beneath the table see the flaws and everything that is wrong. Mysteriously, those above see the beauty and everything that is right. My concern is whether the individual motive is to really fix the country or simply join those above the table. Hashtag fix the country, hashtag Newsfile. Is it Akosia? Okay, you say, okay, does this mean that the government is not aware of all the happenings of this country? What if they were to be in opposition? Would they be seeing the high rate of unemployment, the hardship Ghanaians are facing, corruption, rise in social crimes, etc.? What a question you have asked. If you like, do something, go to YouTube and play back Newsfile when the NPP was in opposition. They do far better than the NDC is doing now in opposition, I can tell you. Prince Henry in Koforidia says, what's the status of the Ejira committee report? It's been some days and weeks now since the report was presented to President Akufo-Addo. We don't want this to be swept under the carpet as it was done to Ayawaso Commission report. Kofi Amwa says, financial management has three basic functions. First, raise revenue. 2, prudently spend it. 3, account for the revenue. This government has borrowing competence in 1, but lacks courtesy in 2 and 3. Not because they don't know, but because they don't respect you. Attitude ranks above knowledge and skills. Collins Little Tete says, corruption ultimately guilts the corrupt, and it hardens the innocent who suffer as a result of it. It isn't the young who corrupt the old, but it is the inverse. The aim of the old should be to ensure that the young grow up incorruptibly. Sack the health minister. Then at Dawn Dreams says, a poem I wrote for Ghana. They are not deserving of any V8 until they fix our roads. When everything is okay, they can do whatever they want, and we wouldn't probably care. Just fix the country. The Dume Kafui said, no need to itemize any list. The government knows what the people deserve. Okay, so thank you for those messages. AJ Nyavo John says the whole system needs an overhaul. Corruption has been our bane, and it's what is drawing us back as a nation. And then this group of messages, Gideon Sapon says, Oman Ben Kranye. And the health minister has not been fired and criminally not held liable for causing financial loss to the state. Then Kofi Amwa, the reason of urgency is moot because as we speak, we have received the vaccine. Have we received the vaccines? When you exaggerate issues, you end up getting issues. Then Ayaye Precious, the health minister, Kukwajman Menu, and all those who took part in this transaction must be prosecuted. These politicians are always looking for ways to milk the state. that must be done with evidence, even though all over the world it's being said that COVID has become an avenue by which, duty bearers are enriching themselves corruptly. Kwame Bibi says, Newsfile, the health minister should do the honorable thing and resign. I suppose I can stop here and come read some of your messages later. Thank you. So let's canvass the issue regarding GNPC, Aker Energy for you. And thankfully, joining us for this segment also, Benjamin Boachi, Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy, ASEP. Dr. Steve Manteao, you can't have it any better than that. Chairman, Alliance of CSOs working on extractive and anti-corruption and good governance. Andrew Ejapamesa is MP for Sekondi and Deputy Energy Minister. Thank you, gentlemen, for making the time to join us on Newsfile.
Pleasure to be on something. Thank you very much.
Great.
Regards to the panel in the studio.
Great. Start with you, Ben. This is a statement that 15 CSOs came together to issue. And among others, you are very suspicious of the deal that the government is getting into to borrow, take a loan of 1.6 billion, is it? Yeah. And to hand to sort of Aker Energy, part of it we know, and a part of it for GNPC as part of the processes in seeking to get whatever it is. Tell us, you ask a series of questions, but tell us, what is the basis of the suspicion and how much work have all these CSOs done about this situation to come to the conclusion that you come to and asking Parliament to investigate it?
Thank you, Evans, again, in regards to your esteemed panel on this show. I think, contrary to what we heard in Parliament, that we are a bunch of ignorant people who don't know what we are about, we bring to this conversation a rich experience across the timeline of this particular transaction, dating back 2009, when Aker first came to Ghana and its contract was abrogated. So we have followed the proceeding, the shift in policy, followed the costs and transactions relative to those particular blocks. And we bring fair understanding to the conversation. And that, of course, is not to claim that we do know better than anybody. And it's a genuine national exercise that we do to make inputs into this conversation so that we can check where we are erring to promote transparency, accountability, and ultimately value for the Ghanaian people. So we looked at this agreement, refreshed our minds on what has happened in this space, and thought that we could take a second look at it. And before we even do these kind of statements, we listen to people within the circles, people who have information, people who can support analysis of that nature, who can check what we are even saying. If we require even a geologist on some of these matters, we are able to summon all those information to be able to put out sound judgment on conversations of this nature. And to bring that into perspective, we have followed Hess when they were attempting to develop the Deepwater Tunnel block, which they had actually done appraisal. In 2016, Hess decided to offload part of its shares, and they were to offload 50% of the shares and keep 50% of that block. So Hess sold 40% to Look Oil and Fuel Trade, 38% and 2% respectively. at a value of $160 million at the time. Down 2018, the value of the asset had dropped for Ake to purchase the remaining 50% for $100 million. All right, so the assets, if you're looking at the asset and how it is valued, it should be valued in the books of Ghana, is how much those who own it today have spent on the block. So if you pull that together, you're looking at about $260 million for that asset. And then you can add on whatever investment has been made subsequent to those acquisitions that were made back then. So we tracked those numbers, and we were worried that, I mean, these transactions happened 3-4 years back, and admittedly, Ake has done some work. The partners have done some work. And how do we measure the work that has been done to be able to accurately top up what has been spent already to make a fair judgment of what the value of the asset is and support what GMPC wants to do? And then we realized that, you know, there was a claim that Ake has already spent about $800 million so far. And that tickled a lot of inquisition as to how that expenditure happened in the past 2.5 years or so. And you realize that Ake has drilled they drilled 3 wells on the deep water tunnel, and they have drilled 2 wells on the south deep water block. So cumulatively, that is 5 wells, and then some appraisal on the deep water tunnel block. But we are talking about $260 million acquisition that represents 12 wells and appraisal work that had been done. So if you compare the two, you will see a vast difference in those numbers. And we have also checked how much Ake says it values its asset currently with all the work that had been done since acquisition and you know, the further work that has been done. And they quote to Ake ASA, which is 50% shareholder in Ake Energy, that the worth of that asset in Ghana on the Pecan field is $225 million. All right. So if you hear the next morning that GMPC is saying that they have done their own evaluation and it is worth $1.6 billion, it raises concern. And also to think that Ake tells Ghana that the asset is worth $2.5 billion, it raises further questions. Why they would represent a different value in their home country and a different value in Ghana. So these are the inquisitions. These are the questions that we are asking for us to re-examine the whole context to see how much we are actually paying for, and also pay attention to the fact that it's not a simple calculation of what barrels of oil exist on the ground and paying for it. Because oil, if not produced, doesn't mean anything. It doesn't add value to anything.
As we understand, you feel this is risky. It's a risky sort of transaction to get into. First, you are not sure if the value that we are putting on this is worth it. Now, as we understand, they have done independent valuation, i.e. from the GMPC, bringing in experts internationally to do this job independently. And the idea is that, as we have said over the time, that we shouldn't allow our mineral resources to be taken by foreigners and repatriate the money, take them away, and then we sit here and we take, peanuts in taxes. So if already we have 10% stake interest in Ake, and by this process, we are going to add 37% to make our holding 47%. In the AGM, we already have 15%, and we are seeking, 70%, so that we'll get 85% controlling stake. Why will this not be a risky business worth going into, particularly when it is expected, as we understand, that the government of Ghana will reap in royalties approximately $7.51 billion in normal terms, and that substantial foreign exchange inflows are estimated around $27 billion in nominal terms.
I think you're throwing out a lot of numbers that we would need to really break it down. And I make the point that you can do all those estimations, all right? You can put numbers to all of those things. Technically, if the oil is not produced, you are not sure. You are never sure of those numbers. So when you're going to such a negotiation, your interest really is to measure the risk, to say, how much do I really need to pay so that if these things don't happen, I can safely say that I measure the risk accurately. Yesterday, we had a beautiful opportunity to speak to the, as you call it, independent valuers of the asset, and only to realize that, what should go into such valuation, they had no control over the parameters that went into the valuation. And they admitted it, that you gave us numbers that we plugged into our analysis. So whatever generates out of that analysis is just what you gave us. And one of our colleagues essentially put it that if you put baggage into an analysis, it's baggage you get out of that analysis. And essentially, that is what has been generated and presented to Parliament as support. And it is not difficult to find what Ake has declared to be the value of the asset on the stock market. It's not difficult to find, for which you would want to context $2.5 billion by bringing in a so-called independent evaluator. And even what happened within this space is extremely odd, where you have parties contending for sale and purchase come together and say, let somebody come and advise us how much the value of the asset is. And that is extremely odd. I asked a direct question to the so-called evaluators, how many times have they done that? Where have they done that? And you won't get a response to that, because it's extremely unusual for such a situation to happen, because it's a banter to save money when you are having to purchase an asset of that nature. And therefore, you come in with your analysis to show that this is how I see the value, and this is how much I'm willing to offer you. And you negotiate to a position that you feel absorbs you significantly of the risks that you are exposing yourself to.
Okay.
But then let's come down to the risk that we are talking about. You see, there are two separate fields with two separate agreements. And the fundamental question we are asking really is this: why is Ake bundling the two fields and selling them as one transaction to Ghana? So you have one field that has gone through appraisal by Hess and subsequent appraisal by Ake. And you have one field that only has one discovery and one dry well. That discovery has not been appraised yet. What that means is that the certainty of the recoverable oil on the ground hasn't been established. Yet, you have an agreement that says that we are selling that asset to the people of Ghana at a set value. And we struggle, to even see what value and segregate that from how much we are selling we are buying the Pecan field, from how much we are selling the South Deep Water Tunnel to us. But thankfully, it came out in the presentation yesterday that the valuers actually valued the one well that has been drilled, unappraised, at $700 million. And that is extremely odd, how they were able to come to that valuation for a well that hasn't been appraised. And if you even check the appraisal program that is submitted to the Petroleum Commission, they contend that they need new technology to be able to produce from the Nyankom discovery. And that possibility of developing that Nyankom discovery can take a while. And that gives me a sense why they are not willing.
All right, let me bring on Dr. Steve Mantiao here. Now, Doc, we have been in a process. We started not now to get in and get sufficient interest so that we can take care of our own bills, free SHS, all of these things, we can pay for them, rather than allow, a few multinationals to come in and take the money and get away with them. So in principle, this must be good. What is wrong with it?
All right, thank you very much, Samson. And let me say that I come to this discussion from a position that is aligned to what GNPC is seeking to do or attempting to do. It's been my long-held position that all over the world, countries that have been able to maximize their returns from their extractive sector are those that are active participants, directly or indirectly, in the extraction. But somehow, as a country, we confine ourselves to a mere rent collector. And even the rent collection, we are not able to do it properly. There are a lot of tax leakages in the extractive sector. And the only way we can retain value within the national economy is to get in there. And I've been advocating for this for some years now. When I was chair of PIAC, we did some analysis, revenue flow analysis from the sector. And we discovered that CAPEX was giving us much more than the taxes. So PIAC made a categorical recommendation to government to explore opportunities for getting a bigger bite at the cake, either in existing blocks or in future contracts. But there is also another compelling reason to support what GNPC is attempting to do. A study done by the Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas shows that in about 7 to 8 years, last 7 to 8 years, we haven't had any meaningful injection of investment into exploration in Ghana, except what GNPC has been doing on the Voltairean Basin. Now, our fields are also beginning to mature. If you take Jubilee, for instance, we have extracted about half of the Jubilee resources. So in the next 9 to 10 years, there will be no Jubilee. We would have been done with it. If you take 10, we've extracted about a third of it. And if you take Sankofa Jiname, we've done about a fourth of it. So unless we find new fields, our oil industry is grinding to a collapse. So it becomes very imperative for us. But unfortunately, because of energy transition, the countries that will come and put their money into exploration are all walking away. And it's understandable because the EU has introduced a program called taxonomy, which classifies companies into bad and good companies. So if you're a company that invests in fossil fuel, you are a bad company. And so the financial institution, once you've been categorized as such, will not give you money. In fact, the financial institutions themselves are also being classified in terms of where their financing goes. So you find that BP, for instance, for 2021 alone, they have cut 40% of their investments into fossil fuel. ENI has issued a statement that it is not injecting a single dollar into any new project. Now, the risk we face as a resource owner is that if we don't take urgent steps to build our own local capacity to produce oil in this country, when these IOCs pull out, we will be left with an asset that has no meaning to us because we cannot extract it. We don't have the capacity to extract it. So it's very dire. And indeed, this energy transition thing sometimes is presented to us as an event, but it is not. It's going to go through a prolonged phase. Look, about 100 years ago, coal was written off. But today, coal continues to be a dominant fuel for power generation in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, America, and other places. But they are not extracting the coal for revenue, for export revenue. No, nobody is exporting coal. Rather, they are using the coal domestically to diversify the energy mix of their countries.
Tell me about this.
As we go through about 50 years of transition, and Ghana has the hydrocarbons, if we have the capacity, we'll be able to extract it. It will be very cheap.
So tell me about this. Tell me about this. The CSOs, 15 CSOs, they acknowledge the fact, and I think Ben has said it a while ago, that the decision to support GNPC to become an operator is not a new conversation. 10 years ago, the country decided to support GNPC to become an operator by allocating a portion of oil revenue. So far, about $1 billion has been given to the corporation, but it has failed to drill one well. Is that a fact?
It is.
So, is there caution?
In fact, PIAC has raised issues about that. That GNPC need to quickly move into its core business and build its operatorship capacity. So there's no doubt about it. GNPC as a vehicle through which we are able to maximize our returns from the oil sector has issues. But I've spoken about GNPC governance issues time and again. And as we take this decision to actually acquire stake in Aker, it becomes imperative that we fix the GNPC governance problem. We need to find ways in which we insulate GNPC from political interferences so that it will be a pure business venture.
So these problems exist, and that's why the CSOs say that there is no point risking billions of dollars of public money in bets that might instead go to support Ghana's health, education, and economic development. You don't agree?
No, you see, we'll be behaving irrationally if we think that because there is a problem with GNPC, we should not actually do things that will inure to our long-term benefit when actually the IOCs pull out.
Okay.
So I think we are doing a prudent thing, and the fact that we recognize that GNPC has issues is also good. Now, I like the idea of having Exproco as the vehicle for participating in the Aker. Why? Because it affords us the opportunity that as Exproco's assets appreciate in value, we can lift Exproco and raise money on the stock.
Who or what is Exproco, and when did Exproco come in, for what purpose?
You know, under the previous government, a decision was taken. It was a strategic decision taken by GNPC to form subsidiaries. It wasn't just about Exproco. There was another one, TradeCo, which was established by GNPC with the hope of getting TradeCo to market its crude oil. So you build capacity in that area, and you kind of specialize and get your own subsidiaries to do that for you. And then Exproco would then do the exploration for GNPC. Okay. Somehow we had a change in government, and that whole strategy got abandoned. But this affords us the opportunity to now rethink the GNPC strategy again. Look, GNPC itself cannot raise money from the stock exchange. Why? Because the statute of its establishment makes GNPC the custodian of our hydrocarbon resources. So if you go list GNPC on the stock exchange, whoever buys into it becomes a part owner of the hydrocarbon resource that belongs to all Ghanaians. So we cannot do that. So it makes sense to set up vehicles like Exploco, which can in future be floated to raise money for exploration activity.
Okay. Now, Ben, let me come to you for this very quick one, because I pulled up this article or news story of 16th March 2021, and it's headed on myjoyonline.com. It says, petroleum industry facing imminent apocalypse as CSOs push to get GNPC to explore and produce its own oil. So basically in this, you had stated that there was the risk of an imminent downturn in the medium term, and that a stranded asset in the long term will location, and therefore you said and urged the GNPC to get ready to step in with the capacity to explore and produce Ghana's oil reserves. Are you going against this now?
I think we are just being alarmists from that perspective. I mean, I only heard Dr. Steve on that. I didn't hear any other civil society organization really mention that we are in such a dire need. And it even contradicts, really, some of the facts that are afoot. And this 2021.
This was contained in a statement that was issued by Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas in Ghana. And it was under the hand of Dr. Steve Manteya. You didn't agree with this at the time, just a couple of months ago?
No. I don't share that position. And I think, you see, sorry about this.
Go ahead.
The situation we have, it's a particular transaction that we are critiquing. And I like the question you posed, that we have been there. It's not as if we are just all of a sudden realizing that we need to empower GNPC to own assets, or we need to give them money to become an independent operator. That was decided way back in 2011 when we passed the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to set aside up to 55% of the net carried and participating interest for GNPC to do these kinds of work, all right? It is the politics that has made them fail to deliver on this. In 2013-2014, GNPC had a cash balance of $200 million. They didn't even know what to do with it. It was sitting in the bank, all right? They didn't do exploration. They didn't drill a well until that money was absorbed into the political system, to the central government. They were granting loans to the Ministry of Finance and financing other activities that was not core to their mandate. So we've been back in circles around how do you empower GNPC. We haven't fixed the governance challenges that we do have in GNPC. And also to highlight that Exploco as an entity hasn't failed to exist. It is still a company owned by GNPC. So that policy orientation is still there. It's not dead. There are stakes in other blocks. E&I recently made a discovery. Exploco has about 4% in that block. There are other blocks that about 8 of them that Exploco has interest. GNPC keeps financing those interests. So we have failed to take the strategic decisions that
in 30 seconds, tell me you are against this in principle, or what do you seek?
We need to have a strategic path that allows GNPC to build a capacity that it wants to have, which we agree. And I'm saying that we have supported that process for the past 10 years. All right, it's not yielding results, and therefore we need to evaluate it to see how do we turn that around for that results to come. But we have a particular transaction on our hands that we are querying. We are trying to understand and see where the problems are so that we can fix it for the country. And that is what we are trying to do at this point, and not to say that we don't understand that there is energy transition happening. We have to put all of that into perspective. I'm not sure you have time for us to be able to do that. But all of that is being used as a smoke screen to really promote a very bad transaction that is really going to suck money away and give into foreign hands, which they are
All right.
So,
thank you, Andrew Ejapa-Mensah, MP for Sekondi and Deputy Energy Minister. You clearly will disagree with the suggestion that there seems to be some smoke screen somewhere over what is going on, and the intention is not exactly what we seek to be pursuing, seeking to get this loan for the purpose. What do you say?
Statement obviously is unfortunate, and I'm particularly disappointed that my good friend Ben will go that route, because there's a suspicion that something untoward is happening. Really, it has no basis at all. Because indeed, but before I even, let me say good morning to my co-panelists and of course those in the studio. You see, I hear Ben to be saying that when you look at the agreement, I see Ghana being shortchanged. It will be interesting for Ben to show us the agreement that he's seeing. Because there really is no agreement. GNPC has not gone into any agreement with anybody.
I think you can replace that with a transaction. Sorry, you can replace that with a transaction. I think it's really it. We presented a transaction to Parliament.
There's no transaction. There is an intent to go into a transaction. And what GNPC Exploco through the Ministry of Energy did was to go to Parliament, indeed first to Cabinet, to seek approval to proceed on that route. Subsequently, when Cabinet approved that, yes, we think that this is something that has to be done. And indeed, the Finance Minister hinted this in the media review budget. If you look in paragraphs 315 and 316, it was clear that this is the path for obvious reasons, including the admonition by the CSOs themselves in your 16th March reference that you made a short while ago, that if GNPC is not empowered to go into operatorship, we would be left with these assets that get stranded at the period where we get to the point that all the majors would have exited investment in this space. Okay, so post the Cabinet approval, the Energy Minister and the Finance Minister have gone to Parliament to seek a mandate to go and negotiate, obviously based on some work that has been done. And so to suggest that something untoward has been done or has been occasioned Ghana when indeed no agreement exists, it's really, to borrow the words of my very good senior Kweku Baku, engaging in an exercise in premature ejaculation. That's precisely how I see my colleagues in the civil society space.
But don't you see the beauty of this? That all the time, when they come together and look at issues and raise them, and I remember very much when you were in opposition, you were in full support of them because this is your area of some expertise. See at this time that they are raising this, and a major player with them, Dr. Steve Manteyao, disagrees with them. Wouldn't you rather want to sort of examine the things they are talking about rather than just simply, dismiss them?
No, I'm not dismissing anybody now. I'll be the last person to dismiss any suggestion or input from civil society.
All right.
What I'm saying is that the suspicion that something untoward is being done has no basis whatsoever. Indeed, the statement that they put out contains inaccurate representations. Indeed, some statements that they made are clearly false.
No, let's be specific. They're speaking about the values and the risk in the values. What do you say to that?
Samson.
Yes.
Any transaction, you are a lawyer. I'm sure that you've done transactions in sale purchase where the basis for the negotiation is some valuation that you do. Nobody can sit in the comfort of his room and put out figures. Indeed, if you look at the document that was submitted to Parliament, it is not only one valuation that has been done. GNPC themselves have done a valuation GNPC has commissioned a joint valuation with ECA. ECA themselves have engaged Pareto and Arctic Securities to do independent valuations for them. Okay? All these valuations churned out figures based on the assessment of the contingent resources which are established and the prospects. This is the basis that GNPC went to cabinet and said that, look, we think that these assessments that we have done is something that we can serve as a basis for whatever negotiations that we go in with ECA AGM. So can we get approval of cabinet and by extension parliament to go and engage in this negotiation? When the documents were submitted to parliament, some comments were made, which then led to parliament approving a cap of 1.1 billion as basis for GNPC to go and negotiate. And what parliament proceeded to say was that, look, this in itself does not give you a mandate to go and consummate any transaction. Go conduct the negotiation, and whatever conclusions that you reach with ECA, bring it back to parliament for approval. That's exactly
what do you say? What do you say to what they suggest ultimately, that to take a stake of $1.3 billion in a field whose front-end design cost should not be anything more than $300 million. What you are simply doing is that Ghana's, oil underground is being sold to you indirectly per that deal.
Samson, that's not true. Indeed, the acquisition or the proposed acquisition is targeted at two contract areas. That is the AGM block, okay, and then the ECA block. One is established contingent resources. One is prospective. And I agree that to the extent that the AGM block has not been appraised, in itself, okay, should form part of the basis for the negotiation that GNPC will go into with ECA.
Okay.
There's no dispute whatsoever at all. But these prospects have been established through seismic data acquisition and some work that has been done that is the industry practice with respect to oil and gas industry, okay? And so to suggest that some short change when the definitive agreement itself have not been reached, that's why I have the difficulty.
All right.
Because the statements that they made were all definitive, as if to say some agreement has been reached that has been submitted to Parliament for approval.
Yeah,
and I'm saying that obviously is not the case.
So, Senior, you in Parliament are going to insist that there is no point for the Speaker to, set up any probe as they are investigation as they are requesting?
But what you cannot put something on nothing. What is there to probe?
Okay. You cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Steve Manteyao, in some 1 minute, how do you see a sort of a consensus or a sort of a management coming together on this issue? How do we get to resolve what they have raised?
I think we are heading in that direction because I think there were initially some misconceptions. I've heard some of my own colleagues say that Ake bought the block from us for 100 million, and now they are flipping it to us for 1.3 billion. To set the record straight, Ake did not buy the block from us. It bought it from Hess Petroleum. We were all in this country when Hess Petroleum indicated they were leaving. According to our Petroleum Act, we have a right of first refusal. We did not take advantage of it, and Ake bought it. Ake could have sold it the next day for whatever price they want. That's the nature of the business. In fact, in the industry, they call it speculation. People move in there and speculate and all that. It's normal practice, but you need to have laws to check it.
Okay.
Okay. So it is not true, the impression being created, they bought from us. We actually did not actually play our cards well. At the time when, Health Petroleum indicated they were leaving, we should have moved in there to acquire it.
Is there,
Would have been cheaper.
is there anything worth investigating as they petition Parliament?
No, I think it's just lack of information. A lot of us, I've also asked questions from various quarters. And I think GMPC, I've gone to them, I've asked questions, they provided information, and now I understand that we are not actually buying at 1.3, but rather it's a ceiling, which has even been brought down to 1.1.
Okay.
And so once the negotiations are still ongoing, we are hoping that we'll negotiate better to bring it down.
All right.
There's that prospect.
Thank you.
I think I should commend GMPC for being very open about this issue.
All right. Ben, you don't think that the meeting, the opportunity they've afforded you to explain things to you and to open up everything, as it were, the books to you, sufficiently, cures what you are seeking by your petition to Parliament?
And that is what we do. We engage GMPC. I mean, we speak to everybody in the space when these transactions of this nature come in. And I want to correct that. Nobody has said that they bought it from Ghana. They didn't buy it from Ghana. We have talked about Hess doing appraisal and selling it $100 million. Ake itself quotes the value of their asset in Ghana. And these are numbers that we have to interrogate. And that's exactly what we are doing, to see how we bring value to Ghana. GMPC itself has, contracted somebody to value an unappraised field at $700 million. We need to interrogate that.
Okay.
And we are raising those questions because it did not add up, to the standards of the industry, where, you see the risk and the fact that the well hasn't been appraised, you haven't established the volumes on the ground, and you are valuing at $700 million. It cannot be right on the Ghanaian people. And those are the questions that we are raising at this
Thank you very much. Ben Boakye is Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Dr. Steve Manteya is Chairman, Alliance of CSOs working on extractive and anti-corruption and good governance. Andrew Ejapa-Mensah is a MP for Sekondi and the Deputy Energy Minister. And it's very interesting for me and intriguing that on this issue, Dr. Steve Manteya and this group will disagree because he's almost always with them. And I'm hearing from Duncan Amwa, also of the CSO, suggesting that if this goes on and it is approved, the country will be fleeced per the manner it appears now. And Kofi Bento says the heart of the deal is the valuation. How do they justify selling a property purchase for 100 million for over $1 billion when they have not added any value to it? You are good at these summaries. Thank you very much, Kofi Bento. Do we move on and come to labor or? Okay. Okay. So we take a break quickly, and we return. And I'm going to be speaking to UTAG, and more particularly because it's exam time, and the University of Ghana, University of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, all of them suspending or postponing exams. That's very terrible. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. Koku has something very brief to say about this Eka Energy GMPC thing that the country is seeking to take a loan of $1.6 billion for.
Growing the GMPC's production and exploration capability in this era of energy transition is a brilliant idea.
Right.
Absolutely brilliant. And listening to friends, colleague panelists on, Zoom, I have to be very honest with you. The clarity that Manchu and the Deputy Minister brought on bear to bear on this thing, it's obvious that nothing fishy is going on. it's been very transparent. They've gone to cabinet, they've gone to parliament, they've gone to the energy economic management team, and indeed they are now negotiating. There's no agreed price fixed yet. I think too much suspicion.
Okay.
It's not helpful.
Yeah, point well noted, but we have gone through everything before and ended up in a saloon looking for money to build a...
Well, that's a historical discussion.
Right.
I do not want us to discuss that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
But it's been put there for
fine. Okay, thank you. Now, thank you very much, and our apologies that we have barely some 15 minutes to deal with this very essential matter. Professor Charles Marfo, National President, University Teachers Association of Ghana, Dr. Kwabena Nyarko Otu, Chief Economist and Director, Labor Research and Policy Institute, Trades Union Congress, Dr. Justice Yansing, General Secretary, Ghana Medical Association. So, Professor Marfo, the Labor Commission says they have secured an injunction against you, ex parte, and you are supposed to get back to the classroom and ensure that you conduct exams. What's going to happen in the next 10 days?
Yes, I would say thank you very much, and good morning. What is going to happen is that, I believe Labour Commission knows that as an association, we have our constitution, and so the way things works. We have received it, and obviously we need to get together as a National Executive Committee of UTAC to look at what they are presented. We are also in legal with our lawyers to advise us. And so as law-abiding organization or association, of course, we will look at it, and whatever the National Executive Committee of UTAC says, we will respond to them appropriately.
But tell me this is not true. I'm hearing you guys say that a professor at the university teaching is earning something in the region of 5,000 Ghana cedis. And I ask myself, how is that possible? That amount a lawyer basic can earn in two hours, talking on phone.
Something that is pathetic, isn't it? And we have, the documents are clear. It is actually unfortunate that we need to come up with these figures to the public to see. But you see, when people want to suggest that you are living well, and you know yourself that things are not all that well, you can only let them know what the realities are. And that is exactly why we have a government attempting to negotiate with him a condition of service we presented to them some 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And they have always been hiding behind the fact that there is something called market labor survey they are supposed to be doing. But the question we have always asked is that, how can we be suffering from the inefficiencies of somebody? If you are supposed to do a job so that I could be well placed and you have not done it, why should I be suffering?
But why the choice of this time when you have taught your students and they are just about to write exams?
You have a point there, but of course, you really need to put your right foot forward at the right time, isn't it? Or if our strike is not going to affect anybody, why would we want to go on strike? And so I don't understand, the students really do understand that they are the only bargaining chip we have. And that is unfortunate, but we need to do that.
Is there a sense that you are going to get what you are asking for anytime soon, even though it's taking 4 years and you haven't had a good response?
Well, I want to believe that we have been overly magnanimous over the years, and that is why people have not shown any seriousness towards the resolution of issues that concerns UTAC. This time, with the resolution from our people, they have given us the mandate to go all out, to insist on what is due us. And so with this mandate, we can only hope that government will begin to sit up and do the right thing.
So you issued a statement signed by yourself and Dr. Eric K. Bavara, and you concluded by saying that you may recall, you're asking all of us, you may recall that in a press release dated 17 June 2021, UTAC stated that further delay on the negotiation beyond the end of July 2021 will compel UTAG to advise itself, unquote. We also like to state that until our demands are considered and met in total, UTAG would have no other option than to embark on an industrial action by withdrawing teaching, which includes the conduct of examination, marking of examination scripts, and other related activities starting Monday, 2nd August until further notice. I'm saying that the injunction secured, of course, on your blind side, lasts for 10 days, mandates you to get back into the classroom.
It's unfortunate assumption, and as you rightly pointed out, this was done at our blind side. And we are very disappointed, especially so when we have given the Labour Commission, before we undertook this action, 3 clear weeks' notice. Something. They did not respond to our letter, let alone calling us for discussion.
So you are back in the classroom on Monday?
Well, if the National Executive Committee, after we have met, decides that we should do that, I did not call the strike. I keep on telling them. I did not call the strike. National Executive Committee did. And until we could do anything about it, they need to meet.
Okay. All right. Dr. Mafu, Professor Mafu, thank you so very much for your time. Dr. Yankson, you also say long-standing, and you have given a roadmap. We are in COVID. How can we expect doctors to put their tools down?
But how can doctors also work without what takes them to the workplace? How can doctors work without energy, especially when we are in the middle of a battle? We need to be resourced. We need to be able to move. And that is why we think that over the last couple of years, we have done more than enough in terms of what we have to discharge by way of our work. The onus is now on the employer to also ensure that they meet in full their side of the bargain. So basically, this is what it is.
But at least we are in a time that you are even getting extra, money for, work done for COVID-19. So can't you hold on?
Unfortunately, no, there is nothing like that.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Very serious. You see, what happened was this. At some point last year, some arrangements were made where a group or there was a categorization in terms of the workers. A group or a section was described as frontline, and they were entitled to a certain 50% of their basic. And it is not doctors only. It was the health service. But in truth, only a small fraction of the health force actually benefited from that. And those who believe that they actually deserve that, the majority of them have not even seen a penny on that basis because, in quotes, they have not been validated as part of the frontliners. And that is also even creating a lot more problems for us when it comes to trying to mobilize a lot more of the health service workers, both the professionals and sometimes the non-professionals, to continue to battle COVID the way it is.
Okay. Thank you.
With some
thank you, Dr. Yankson. But as we understand, you say that you are going to suspend OPD activities for a week effective October 1, 2021. You are going to withdraw all inpatient services effective October 8, 2021. That is if your concerns are still not addressed. Then you are going to have a complete withdrawal of all services effective October 15, 2021. We pray that you get sorted so that this doesn't happen. Now, let me also get TUC's Dr. Kwabena Nyako to come in briefly in the next 3-4 minutes. Government met you halfway, some way, not I may say, some way, 4% for now. And then I think in 2020, the 22 or when, then you get 7%. The finance minister clearly suggests that, yes, these are not decent wages that anybody is receiving, but we are in the pandemic. There's no money. There's no productivity. So why are you also still insisting that you must get your sort of pound of flesh? Hello, Dr. Yako. Yes, please,
Okay, I'm here.
please unmute. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And from the onset, let me say that, I mean, wages issues generate so much emotions. And as you have seen, the 4% hasn't gone down well with our members. The Secretary General himself mentioned in his press conference that those that negotiated the 4% are themselves not happy with the 4%. But we should situate that 4% in a broader context of the challenges we have with wages, remuneration, and the general cost of living in Ghana. So if you look at what UTAC is saying, and if you look at what GMA is saying, it's all part of the bigger problem of low wages we have in this country. And it is not just with low wages. I mean, UTAC is asking for a $2,000 basic pay for a professor. That's not really much to ask for. But we know that this wage problem is a historical problem we have had in this country. But beside the low wages, we also have the issue of pay inequity in the public service. And here, I mean, we've all seen the Article 71 pay levels. But that is actually not the highest pay levels you have in the public sector, as we know it. Others, not politicians, actually take much higher pay than those we have seen from Article 71.
Right.
So the point I'm driving at is that in the context of the 4%, if you place it in a broader context, then it takes us to the point made by the Secretary General at the press conference of organized labor, that we need a presidential commission on wages and salaries. First, to raise the levels. I mean, the professors taking 5,000, I mean, it's an insult. But also to ensure that there's fairness and equity in the whole public sector administration system. Single spine was designed to ensure that we reduce the inequities. Unfortunately, it has failed to do so. It was also designed to ensure that we raise significantly pay levels in the public sector. Again, unfortunately, it has failed to do so. But then the question comes, the timing. We live in a certain timing that makes it difficult for us to be able to do some of the things that ought to be done in the first place.
All right.
I mean, we live in a context of an economy battered by COVID, seriously.
Right.
And I mean, those that did the negotiations saw figures.
So you expect serious effort at setting up this commission to, as it were, examine the wages holistically.
It's important. It's much more important. And this is something we should have done even before COVID hit.
All right.
Now, it's difficult to suddenly wake up in a COVID environment and think that we can have all our issues addressed.
Right.
And linked to the pay is also the issue of pensions.
Right. I'm very grateful for your time. I'm very grateful for your time. And unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so very much, Dr. Yako, for making the time. And this show, as always, brought to you by our kindest sponsors, Bank of Africa, MTN, Ashesi University, Robert & Sons, Waylead Properties, Star Assurance, Duraplast, DBS Industries, and SEMA, helping people and helping people and business to succeed. And my outfit, as always, is brought to you by Habel's Couture. Habel's Couture. They are found at Adringano Gates, East Legon. Adringano Gates, East Legon. You can call them 0200 841 988. 0200 841 988. In some 30 seconds, maybe Dr. Okoboy. Yeah.
I think it's got to do with dialogue, sit on the table. Luckily, the Labour Act, if you look at Section 135, talks about the National Labour Commission. So we have the opportunity to resolve some of these things. It's my hope that we do it quickly.
Okay. Thank you also very much, my guest, for a very good job done this morning up to this point. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. on The Law, I return with Professor Kukwazar, and also Dr. Justice Sremsai, dealing with questions of dual citizenship and the need to scrap that for Ghanaians who have dual nationalities to perhaps benefit as any other Ghanaian among others. It's Kukubaku says that's a good cause. Yeah. All right. Nathaniel Atto comes your way shortly with the Joy Sports link with Marcel Desiree. How? That's going to be beautiful. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. We're done.